have real estate investor purchasing a multifamily with tenants in place, do you have any recommendations, maybe a checklist of things to do before making that acquisition?
A lot of it is you need to talk to the owner to see if they've been communicating with the tenant, find out when the last payment of rent is. If it's, a lot of it when you're talking to the potential seller, they're like, oh, I have a tenant in the property. They just want to get rid of them. But it's like, when was the last time they paid rent? Oh, they paid rent in March. So you obviously know, click, 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 it's a COVID issue. So I would just factor in a cash for keys that you have to come up with to get the tenant out.
Okay. Have they standardized cash for keys? Is there a specific dollar amount as a minimum? And I'm assuming there's no maximum to cash for keys.
There's definitely no maximum for cash for keys, but last time I checked, it's about $6,000 in the city of Lancaster. LA is still, I'm getting about 30 grand right now for cash for keys, but with like a move out date in December. We have LA is still the most expensive. San Francisco is pretty up there, same with Oakland, but not too expensive. But you kind of have to figure a time and a half of what the relocation would be. That's what you should be offering the tenant.
Okay, interesting. And TJ, question for you. You've said that the luxury market is more of an art than a science. Have you experienced any changes in the luxury market?
That's a good question, Mike. So my experience in the luxury market has again been that it is more of an art than a science. So you can't just sit there with an Excel spreadsheet and really figure out how to succeed in that market. You've got to have some flair, some ability to really understand what your customer wants. That being said, what we're seeing right now in our portfolio, which is focused primarily on the median part of the market, is that the median part of the market, if you've got, average or better than average product and your price point is around the median or maybe slightly less than the median, this stuff is flying off the shelves and the market has never been stronger and it's absolutely incredible. As it relates to the luxury market, anecdotally, I can see that there's quite a bit of inventory out there and things are moving pretty slowly. And I don't know if that's even related to COVID because that had started, I think, late last year where the luxury market started to have longer days on market and more inventory sitting around. So, whenever people come to me with these hot, interesting luxury deals, I can flip a house in Malibu or whatever, I want to just make sure that they've got a sensitivity analysis that says, okay, well, if the rehab costs me twice as much, what does that do to my deal? If it takes me an extra year to finish it, what does it do to my deal? And make sure that the deal can withstand those things. And usually they can't. The only final thing I'll say on that is we can definitely say that our borrowers have experienced a very distinct slowdown on being able to work with the municipalities in terms of permits and inspections. So things that used to be changes that might just be an over-the-counter change that would take an hour to do now could take weeks and weeks and weeks because different municipalities have got different processes. But often, if you have to submit paper plans, they want to quarantine the paper plans for 3 days, and then they send it to somebody else's desk and it quarantines for 3 days. And so a process where there's multiple people have to touch it could take many weeks. Now, if you think of all the little changes that you might have done over the counter when you're doing a rehab, and then you add all those things together, it can really delay your project. And that really matters in a luxury project. I'm grateful that most of the stuff that we've offered, that we're invested in, is smaller rehabs that don't require a lot of intervention from the city. But somebody that's doing a lot of development is going to be impacted by the situation very dramatically.
I think that's really good advice too for those that are planning to do a project that might have permits and other exchange within the city and the municipalities. Definitely give yourself that cushion on time frame. And TJ, in regards to if you take a stand from or an outlook from a retail buyer on the conventional lending platforms out there, What's your outlook on interest rates in general in the next 6 months? Do you think they'll increase or decrease, or maybe just stay around the same?
Well, interest rates on consumer mortgages are at an all-time low. I mean, it's really spectacular. If you've got a solid job with a good W-2 income, you can afford a lot more home today than you could a year ago, for sure. And that's great. I don't see anything that's really any upward pressure on interest rates. And when we say interest rates, we could mean a lot of different things. You specifically asked about consumer mortgage rates, but just in general, it's hard to imagine any upward pressure on interest rates. The Federal Reserve has said that they're going to allow inflation to increase beyond their normal bands, which means that they're not going to be tempted to increase interest rates to slow down the economy. Okay, so the Federal Reserve has said they're going to allow inflation to go up a little bit. I don't think there's any real pressure on inflation. You see food prices going up and stuff like that, but energy prices have gone down because people are driving less and we're using less energy. And employment is certainly not full. And those are the types of things that might cause a lot of inflation. So the upward pressure for interest rates, it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of it. And I think you're safe assuming very low interest rates for the time being.
Okay. And let's round out with the last few questions that I have. And actually, Stephanie, I'll pass this one to you. Kind of a similar question from the ending of our last one would be, where do you see the market in the next 6 months?
I'm quite surprised at where the market is right now, currently, when you asked me about it back in April. I mean, I don't think anybody ever saw that the pandemic would create the highest prices of values for the homes and for rental market. So I don't think anything's changing right now. Like TJ said, I mean, the loans are still vetting people. They're not giving out loans without making sure that everyone's getting applied and can doubly be applied to get the loans. So the reason the prices are high is because the interest rates are low, and I think that they're going to stay that way. I think there's still not a lot of inventory. A lot of people haven't decided they wanted to move. And as long as there's not enough supply, there's going to be a ton of demand. And even now we're going into November and the market's still moving quickly. Prices of homes they're popping up and they're selling within a week if they're priced correctly and done correctly. People are looking for turnkey homes, and that's where I think the flippers and investors have an advantage, because that's what they prepare for, the type of buyers. And we have an influx of millennials. The millennial generation is going to be bigger than the boomer generation. And that's who I think, and millennials only want turnkey homes. They don't want to take any time to invest in it, to rehab it themselves and move into it.
Sure. And TJ, how do you see the housing market compared to your thoughts 6-7 months ago?
Yeah, when we just started this call, I mentioned that, back in March, we really had to sit down and get into a lot of detail about what did we think was going to happen. And we ran a bunch of, war game type of scenarios. We always felt that the residential side of the market would remain strong. There's so little supply and such high demand, and industrial, and for years we've believed in. And so I guess 6 months later, I would say that our thoughts haven't changed. I have been surprised about really how strong the residential market has been. I sort of thought it would be kind of unchanged, but seeing an exodus from, more densely populated areas into some more suburban areas has absolutely been a help. Seeing how hard it is to do new developments right now and to do new construction right now, so limiting supply has been a help. And then seeing some of the human innovation that we've seen over the last 6 months is incredible, and innovation behind maybe repurposing retail to light industrial and getting that last mile distribution piece right, and some of those other things that we certainly didn't foresee in March are continuing to strengthen the market. So I think next year we'll probably all just take a breath, and some of those trends that are pumping up the market right now will ease, or will have kind of normalized. And so I wouldn't say 2021 is going to be an enormous boom market, but it's it's hard to imagine with such limited supply of residential and such limited supply of industrial, how there would need to be a major correction in the near future. I just don't see it.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that. That rounds out our discussion for today. Again, I want to thank Stephanie and TJ for taking the time to share. And again, if you have any questions from this webinar, you'd like to get in touch with any one of us, we'll have contact information. And within closing too, my thoughts would be that the end of the year is typically, historically, has always been the busiest time as far as November, December. And with the market as accelerated as it is right now, those deals that just fall into your lap last minute can be a blessing in disguise. And also, now what do? You have to source capital. So if you have any of those that are the last minute, need to close before the end of the year, our doors are open, we're deploying dollars, and we always look forward to new business. So TJ and Stephanie, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody got something of value in this.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you guys having me again.
Yes, always a pleasure to have you. We'll have to, again, try and get you on sooner. But we'll have a follow-up to this and see where we're at in another 6 months. So thanks again, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.